being an older business owner, I've primarily focused on local radio and print sources. What can I do to evolve my marketing strategy to be best suited for today's environment? So it's one of those where they knew so much, they've been doing it for a long time, but now obviously with social media and the internet, obviously the internet's been around for a while, but they've been so hyper focused on just print and radio, and things are kind of changing. How can they shift over, or what are some first steps they can do? And obviously if this is an older audience or just an older business owner, like it might be trickier, harder to kind of shift into something that doesn't feel comfortable for them.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the first thing you need to have is you need to have the platforms, to be able to do, advertising today. So, if you don't have a Facebook business page for your company, you probably should have one. Same with, depending on the type of business you're in, a LinkedIn business page for your company. You need to have a Google business page for your company. So there's some foundational things you're going to need before you even have the discussion of what you should do. Obviously, you can't advertise on Facebook if you don't even have a Facebook business page. So, I don't want to go back to square one, but ultimately, if somebody's not been utilizing these platforms, there's a chance they don't have a Google business page, or they don't have a Facebook or Instagram business page. So the first thing I would say is to create those if you don't have those. The other thing to keep in mind is, the things that worked for you in traditional marketing, like the basic rules of marketing, in some ways have not changed as far as that goes. I mean, the idea that you want to basically discuss, if you will, or shine a light on a pain point, and then how your product or service potentially is a solution to that pain point. Now, whether you do that with radio advertising or newspaper advertising, or whether you do it with digital, it's all about storytelling, if you will, and it's all about telling people what you do. It's not about, in my mind, like occasionally it might be talking about a sale that you're doing, but a lot of it is educating people about what you do and how your product maybe takes care of a problem or a pain point in their lives. And that doesn't really matter what platform that you're on, if you will. Like, it doesn't matter if it's older traditional marketing or newer. I think a lot of times people in newer digital, and newer digital platforms feel a little bit more, because it's like, I don't want to say it's throwaway, but the posts can be changed so frequently, they don't spend enough time actually thinking about generating good quality content and actually so they put a lot of stuff out there. And again, you really have to think about every post you make is a piece of your brand. It should be on brand. Doesn't mean that every one of them has to be a serious post. Doesn't mean every one of them has to be this long, informative post, but they should be on brand for your company. And I think that where a lot of people miss the boat with social is they sort of mix the social and the business a little bit too closely. And I'll see people's business page where all of a sudden they're sharing a political post or something like that. My advice would be, and I mean, I have strong opinions about certain things the same way anybody else does, but I would separate those two things. If I were, my advice to a business would be, don't post personal things on your business page. Try to keep it related to the business. And again, whether it's, it's just like the old rule of the old rule of polite conversation, avoid religion, avoid politics. I mean, it's probably good advice for marketing as well.
No, for sure. I think kind of what popped in my head when I was having this discussion was, if it's something that you're comfortable with, whether it's print and radio, obviously those are photos and voiceover, if I'm thinking about it in a video aspect. And I think a lot of people too, whether you're an older business, you don't want to get in front and hold up that camera and talking to if it's not comfortable for you, you're probably not going to do it. And so it's, how can you figure out hacks and ways to kind of still get the video stuff out? And one of the things that I've been seeing on TikTok and Instagram that have been pretty popular recently is kind of having a photo series, whether it's 4 or 5 different photos. And so that way, if it's something that you've used in print, and whether it's you're showing your process of whatever you're doing or different products, and then kind of having somebody talk over the back of it. So then one, you're there's so many different ways that are out there that you can do it without showing your face and still get across what you're trying to do, which might be a little more comfortable for you to kind of start. So whether you have 4 different products and you're kind of showing them and describing them and trying to do it within a concise manner, like maybe write all this stuff out just like you would for a radio script and be like, all right, I've got 30 seconds. I've got a 30-second spot. And how can I use like the print media that I have here and kind of break those up and then be like, okay, I'm going to talk through, and it might take a minute, or you might need to ask somebody younger to kind of go through and figure out like, how do I figure out this video, or where can I do voiceover? But I think once you kind of do that 1 or 2 times, it might be easier, and it might be really comfortable for you to kind of get into that aspect. And then that way you're putting out content on this new medium that still feels comfortable for you. And so that way you're not just jumping in the deep end and be like, I'm going to do a video and I don't know how to edit or any of that stuff. Or you're giving a boring, like like video where you're not really getting anything across because you don't feel comfortable with the camera on you. So finding different ways to kind of stay in your comfort zone, but yet still kind of evolve into the new media, and finding those different things and talking to different people about how can I change and do these different things. But try different stuff, figure out the voiceover, figure out how to add just photos, and then hopefully that might work for you.
I think that's great advice. I do think that one of the things people made a mistake with social media is people talk a lot about being transparent and the value of just a raw video and it not being too polished or things like that. But there is such thing as being too unpolished. Like, if you're talking to somebody and it's filled with ums and ahs, and, it takes 3 minutes to describe something that should have taken 1. I mean, spend a little bit of time. It doesn't mean you have to be on script like you're reading from a cue card, but spend a little bit of time so when that video comes on or that voiceover goes on, that you feel like you can talk pretty fluidly about that without a lot of pauses and ums and ahs and things like that. And I think you're going to have more success. But I do like the idea of using pictures with voiceovers if you don't feel comfortable getting in front of the camera and actually shoot it. It allows you to run Instagram Reels. It allows you to run TikTok. It allows you to do a lot of different things without feeling like you've got to yourself get behind the camera. And I also would just say, most small businesses have a variety of things going on in a given day that can be compelling content. It might not seem compelling to you because you do it every day. Like, say you own a bakery and you take a video of muffins rising in the oven. You might be like, what's the big deal? I see that 10 times a day, 6 days a week, whatever. But that type of content is actually sometimes what works really well. Just showing people what you're doing. I mean, just showing people an element of your business. It doesn't have to. That type of video, you could take that video, add some music behind it with very little text, and it might do really well for you. I mean, so you've got to play around with different things, but also look at ways you can sort of give people a peek behind the curtain. People love to see like content that's like not polished, like a little bit of like a day in the life of your business. And I think if you can figure out a way to do that, I think people will respond well to it.
No, I completely agree. I'm thinking about like watching a muffin rise or like kind of the donut process. It gets people like, then they want to go have one. And but hopefully if it's something that, if it's a close by donut shop, they're going to go over and probably get one pretty soon. So it's figuring out a way to kind of hack into that. And that's definitely, like I've mentioned before, with time lapses and doing something that's so simple where you can just buy a $5 stand and stick your phone, and especially if you have an iPhone, it shows you time lapse, and then just stick it there and record for 10-15 minutes. I think I did it this weekend with some hot air balloons and just kind of sat doing it there and kind of do a time lapse, and you can kind of just throw that on social, like you said, with some music, and chances are it might be one of your better ones. Obviously, painting my office here is by far probably one of my best TikToks on my personal page, just because it was a time lapse and people were staying. And like we talked before, it's that thumb pause. If you can get somebody to kind of stay on your screen, and like if they're interested in what you're doing, they're going to keep watching the video. And that's the key, is to hold them in. And one of those simple things can be an easy way to do that without much work, that, like you said, again, is not showing your face, and can be very compelling for somebody who's not there every day seeing it.
Yep. No, I mean, I think of just a variety of things that could be that, I used to be in the bike industry, and I think a lot about, like, when I worked my way through college as a bike mechanic, and, adjusting a rear derailleur on a bike so that the gears shift smoothly and crisp and concise and go up and down the rear cassette. That's something you do 50 times a day working on bikes in a bike shop. But I think, somebody took a video of your hand and showing people, like, okay, if you're clicking for the next gear up, but it's not catching to the next gear up, that would say that you need to actually tighten the cable, and just show somebody how it could go from, like, not shifting smoothly to bam, now it's shifting really smoothly, and how you adjust the derailleur. That's something that a lot of bike mechanics would be like, man, this is boring. I do it 50 times a day. But I could see how that could actually be a really cool TikTok, like seeing the chain go up and down the derail or the cassette and shifting smoothly, maybe starting out to where it's not shifting smoothly, showing you make a couple adjustments, and then it's shifting really smoothly. So a lot of it is just trying to look for those things within your own business that could be interesting, like that you might not find interesting because you've been doing it every day, but other people might find kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's going to be your audience.
I'm sure you didn't find it interesting to paint your office, but other people found it interesting.
I think it's just one of those things where it's whether it's colors or anything like that, where it kind of can pull people in. But yeah, and I was just thinking, like, obviously for me, this was like a personal, like, my personal followers, like, oh, that's kind of cool or whatever. But I think exactly like what you were saying too, whether it's in your market and knowing, hey, I've got this specific niche, whether it's bike enthusiasts that are kind of looking for this, chances are if you get one or two people that kind of like that, and it's no different. My best TikTok on my marketing page is my rain barrel, like, one. It's got like 16,000 views, and it was just an accidental that I should have had on my personal page. But because there's so many different people that like specifically how rain barrels are set up and kind of the process of how it fills up these other ones, like, more and more people liked it. And so it's finding one of those things that you're going to have a niche, especially if you're a very specific shop. You're going to have your target market, like I've mentioned before, of people, and hopefully you can pull those people in by something like this, whether it's muffins, bikes, rain barrels. Like, there's going to be people that are very specific and looking for that, because one, the algorithms are going to know, hey, this person is like these other posts that have been very similar to this. They're going to probably push that post. If they've liked a donut shop and croissants and different things, and you're making muffins, chances are the algorithms are like, hey, this person might like a muffin thing, or this person might like bikes. So it's knowing that, how can I get into that same thing? And if you do repetitive ones that are all kind of the same, chances are you're going to get those people to your page. So
yeah, I agree. I mean, I would say, to answer that question, to come full circle, I would say if you haven't been doing digital marketing, social media marketing, and you're wondering how to get in, I would say, obviously do a little bit of, education ahead of time. But the best thing you can do is just, jump in and start doing it. I mean, there's nothing that's going to allow you to learn it better than, like, getting in and doing it. I mean, obviously try to avoid making some major pitfall type mistakes. But I mean, I think in general, most people get paralyzed by worrying that they're not going to do something right, or it's not. And what happens is they never get out of the starting gate. And what I would recommend is, get in and start doing it, and you're going to figure it out soon enough. I mean, if you have a social platform you want to understand, the best thing to do is download that app and get in there and start actually playing around with it and figuring out how it works. Again, don't be paralyzed by fear of, like, that there's this perfect way to do it. Start learning. And as you do it more, you're going to feel more comfortable. You're going to figure some things out. Maybe you could have some people you could ask some questions to, things like that. You could always come on here and ask questions, things like that. But the reality is, action is better than inaction. Start doing something. Figure it out.